Hi, welcome. Today we're going to talk about the Rossolimo attack. So this opening has been invented by Nicholas Rossolimo, and no, he wasn't Italian, he was Russian and American too. So Rossolimo was born at Kiev on the last century, and on those days Kiev was part of the Russian Empire. Nowadays is part of Ukraine, and he was quite strong because he was a strong international master, and he spent most of his life improving this opening. Today we will analyze one of his games. About nowadays, well, we have several strong GMs that play this opening against the Sicilian. I'm talking about Vasil Agraf, Anand Shirov, Ivan Shuk, or even Peter Svidler. And this opening is increasing its popularity right now. So if you want to use this opening, you can use it against all kinds of different players, even with grandmasters. So this is a good opening. So let's start. But before that, did you know that almost 87% of the viewers isn't subscribed? Please subscribe. Why don't you like me? I'm a good person. So subscribe, like, and let's be friends. So it's free, and well, I will be happier, and I think you will be too. So subscribe today, and let's walk together in this chess journey, and let's be masters together. So to join, you just need to subscribe, push the like button, and let's be happy. So continuing. When we talk about the Rossolimo, well, this opening starts with e4, c5, so this is the Sicilian, and after knight f and knight c, this is the open, these are the open lines of the Sicilian. The move bishop b5 is the Rossolimo attack. And today we will see the different ideas. One is the d6, the other variation is e6, and we will see g6. Later in the end of the video, we will see to knight f6. So let's start with our first line. So d6 is important. And what is the idea behind this move? Well, it's quite simple. We want to put the bishop, creating pressure on the knight. And the idea will be to break the pawn structure if our opponents let us do that. In this case, my suggestion is just to castle, because, okay, you can take if you want, and your opponent will have double pawns, but it isn't clear that you have a better position after e5. So for me, the castle kingside, it's a normal idea. And if your opponent plays, for example, bishop d7, the idea is that this has a name of an attack, but for me, the best strategy is to control the center. So this isn't an aggressive opening, this is a positional opening. So for example, here, in my opinion, you want to continue with the rook, creating ideas of advance in the future. And after that, for example, knight f6, we can play c3 with ideas of playing d4. For example, one idea could be a6, and after bishop f1, why bishop f1? Because if I take bishop takes, black will create pressure on this pawn. So just to show, this pawn is being attacked by two different pieces. So, okay, this is playable, I can play d4, but for me, probably it's better to play bishop f1, waiting to see what our opponent wants to do. For example, after bishop g4, we can play h3, and after bishop h5, we can do creative stuff. We can be happy playing g4. Of course, if knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, we can play bishop e2, and this is normal for white. And if bishop goes to g6, we can play d3, and after e5, knight a3 is a very beautiful idea. Of course, we can play knight to d2 too, but the idea it's always the same. We want to put a knight on c4 on the correct time. And if I play right now the knight to d2, this will block my bishop on c1, and I don't want that to happen. So playing knight to a3, well, I can do later knight to c4. For example, if black plays b5, I don't need to be preoccupied with that or worried with that, because I will control the center with my knight, playing knight c2, knight e3, and later knight d5 or even knight f5. So this is an interesting idea. Another idea can be just to let's see. For example, if black doesn't play knight to f6 and plays e5, probably some of you are thinking about this this idea. Well, here we have a strong continuation too. Of course, all of that are playable for white and black. So the idea is always to control the center with c3 and d4. This isn't a system, but it's similar to a system, because on most lines we can do that. So after knight f6, we can continue with d4, and now we are creating pressure on the center. One of the most complicated lines is with a6, and after bishop takes, now we can, for example, take the pawn. And here, of course, this is necessary, because if pawn takes, for example, queen takes, and then I will catch the pawn. So after knight takes e4, here we can play knight d2, and after pawn takes, I like this position because knight can take, and we are creating some pressure because the black's king is still on the center. So this isn't very easy to play for black, in my opinion. For example, just to see, if for example rook c8, this is already won with queen h5. So probably in this moment, black isn't well right now. So for this reason, for example, for the black player, it's necessary to see moves like d5. And okay, what is the idea? The idea is that for the white player, I have some space because this pawn is well placed on the center. So this will restrict some of the black's pieces, and for the black player, this won't be an easy game because the pawn on d5 isn't being protected by other pawns too, so can be targets for my attacks. So about the lines with d6, I think these are the most important ones, but we can see another idea. I've already played that. This isn't the best move, but is an alternative. If you want, you can try to play this too. So this isn't so strong, but it's playable too for white. Let's see. If pawn takes, this is terrible for black because, in my opinion, after bishop takes, pawn takes, the pawn structure is completely broken. So here we can take the pawn, and for example, even if the queen goes to d5, we don't need to be worried about, because, well, we can play knight to f3. What is our argument? Well, it's quite simple. We have a superior pawn structure, so we can exchange all the minor pieces and we will try to play for the endgame. So this is very interesting because doing just positional stuff, you can create problems to your opponents. So about the first lines, I think we've already seen some ideas. So this is very interesting. The next variant is the variant with e6. It's more popular on my level, for example. And after, of course, Rossolimo, you always play against the knight on c6, because that's the idea. The bishop is attacking the knight. And the second variation is this one. So after e6, we need to think a little bit to know what will we do. So some players exchange the bishop by the knight right now, but I will not defend this idea. For me, you want to castle always because, well, you can have problems in the later stages of the game because of the lack of the white square's bishop. So if you castle, everything is open, so you can think about what will you do. Of course, if a6, well, it's time to take because you don't want to lose a tempo. And if he plays, for example, d5, here it's quite simple. You want to take the pawn, give a check, and let's be happy, because after bishop e6, now we have a very interesting idea, d5. The idea is to try to develop the bishop, and don't forget, these kind of ideas are possible too. So after, for example, knight f6, we can continue with knight g5. Of course, this is playable for white and this is playable for black. But in my opinion, this isn't easy to play for the black player. I'm telling you that because I've already lost a lot of games on the internet and official games too, because I like to play. One of the openings is the Sicilian. So here, after queen to d7, we can play bishop just to create pressure on the queen side. And after h6, let's take pawn takes. And here we can continue with queen to e2, creating pressure on this pawn. So this is complicated for black, because right now, in my opinion, this isn't easy to play because, well, normally we want to do castle kingside or queenside. And in this kind of games, I think for the white player, I don't want to exchange a lot of material because here my middle game is stronger, and I will develop all the pieces with calm and we will see what happens. So for me, this is a nice game for white. So let's see if we have another idea. For example, here, if you want, you can do a different move. For example, this is possible too. So this opening isn't one line opening. So you don't have a lot of theory because you can think and decide what do you want to do with your own pieces. So, for example, if this pawn takes, here, for me, white are already better because bishop takes, pawn takes, and the pawn structure is completely broken. It's the same as the last position. So this isn't easy for black. So another idea can be knight to e7 instead of d5. But knight e7, okay, what if we play c3 again? And after d5, okay, we play d3, the same idea. If pawn takes, it will be the same. This is good for white because I don't have any problem. And yeah, the black player doesn't have any problem too. The situation is that if this knight goes to g6, I can take the knight. It's something like that. So, and if in this position the black plays knight to g6, well, here we can continue with pawn takes, and after queen takes, you don't need to be worried because here we can attack the queen and then advance the pawn to d4. This can continue with pawn takes, and we have an interesting game with some attacking potential for white because we have an isolated pawn. So we will try to advance this pawn and we will try to have activity with our minor pieces. So about our second line, it's finished. Right now we will see the lines with g6. So if you want to see different lines, please tell me something on the comments of this video, okay? And if you're enjoying, tell me it too, okay? So the third line is the line with g6. And sorry, this line is very popular. And you can create a lot of problems if your opponent doesn't know what is doing. So my suggestion here is just to continue with normal moves. I won't defend c3. This is the only variation that I don't defend c3. For me, for example, you can play castle with any problems. And after bishop to g7, rook e1. This is the same in all lines, so you don't need to complicate. And after knight f6, if this happens, I will defend this advance, e5. Because, for example, if knight goes to g4, we will take first. For example, d will take probably to open the bishop. And then we will play d3 to protect the pawn with bishop f4. What do I want to do? I want to win space. And this is a great pawn. And this pawn won't fall. About ideas, yeah, we can play bishop f4, h3, knight a3 with c4, or even later knight d with a4, a5, and then c4 to prevent b5. So these are some ideas on this kind of lines. So this is interesting. For example, b6, queen e2, castle, just to show, and well, h3, it's possible, knight to h6, and well, the idea of playing knight to c4. So this is the same as the first line we've seen here today. So another, and we've already saw the three most used lines for black, but I want to show you one last line, is a sideline, and this can happen because here, for example, after bishop b5, instead of this or this move, the black can play knight to f6. And okay, here again we need to think a little bit, but okay, normally most of the players take the knight with the bishop. But I will defend e5. For me, is more aggressive. And on the last variant, we have seen the play of the knight to g4. Right now, let's see knight to d5. If this happens, I will defend castle again. Easy game, easy stuff, easy ideas. And after, for example, g6 is a transposition to the last variant. Here, I will defend rook e1, always the same, we don't need to complicate. And after bishop g7, we continue with knight c3. So this is interesting. Why? Because if knight takes, of course, d will take. And after castle, well, I like a lot queen to d5, because if this pawn advances, this will be an easy game for white. Of course, here, if you want, you can take the pawn with any problems. So this pawn is yours. So this, in my opinion, okay, it's playable too for black, but in my opinion, in games of 2200 below, white will win most of the games. So for me, this is easy stuff. So we've seen several different lines: d6, e6, g6, and knight f6. But now we need to compare our ideas with some of the strongest players. So it's time to see 3 games, and these are all miniatures. And the first game is a game between Rossolimo itself and Ivan Romanenko, sorry. So Rossolimo is playing with white, and Ivan Romanenko is playing with black. So e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, and bishop b5. Here it is, sorry, the Rossolimo. And here the black has played g6. And after g6, this is theoretical, and white will play the castle. We defended that, we've seen that move, and after bishop g7, he will continue with rook e1. We are doing the same as Rossolimo. So here, knight has played to f6, and of course here, yeah, probably we would advance the pawn to e5, and the game wouldn't be easy for black. But here, Rossolimo has played knight c3, is playable too. It's more normal. And black has played after that knight to d4. This isn't a good move because black isn't developing his pieces. So here white will advance the pawn, and after knight g8, it's like Romanenko is thinking on the next game, is putting the pieces on the initial position. So here, of course, Rossolimo will continue with d3 to develop his pieces to the center. Everything is normal. And after knight takes, here black has played a6. And for me, this is one of the most spectacular attacks on chess history. This game has been played at 1948, so it's quite an old game. And if you want to practice your tactical moves, put the video on pause, because this is beautiful stuff. Because right now, Rossolimo will play knight d6, check. Of course, here the black player could play king to f8, and probably after knight takes bishop or even knight e4, white would be better. But he has taken. And after that, here, Rossolimo will continue with very, very, very beautiful tactical continuation. So instead of taking the pawn, because this doesn't win, because black will play the king to f8, Rossolimo will attack first the queen. Of course, here, those kind of moves doesn't work because pawn takes and this be check. And after queen to a5, he will continue with pawn takes, check, king to f8, rook sacrifices. Do you know the name of this move? We've already talked about that here on this channel. If you know, please tell me on the comments. So rook to e8, and after that, king takes, queen e2, check. And after king f8, again, let's go. Brilliant stuff. Bishop e7. If knight takes, this is a tragedy because this will finish on a checkmate. Queen takes, king goes here, and knight g5. It's over. So, brilliant stuff. And if the king goes to e8, again, bishop d8. So, it's mandatory to take the bishop, or else the bishop will take the queen. So here, of course, king takes, and after knight g5, the game is over, because this will finish on a checkmate. Because if the knight goes here, I will give checkmate here. And I don't have any alternative. The only alternative is to give check with the queen, and rook will take, and yeah, this doesn't continue anymore. This is an unstoppable mate, so it's quite strong. These were the level of Rossolimo. He was quite a strong player. So the second position, the second game we will see is a game between Akopian and Kasparov. Kasparov was a world champion, a brilliant tactical player, but he have lost this game. So this game has been played at 2002, and Akopian was very strong too. So let's see. So here, Vladimir Eduardovich Akopian is playing with white, and Garry Kasparov is playing with black. On those days, Kasparov had 2838 of rating, so a monster. And let's go. e4, c5, knight, knight, bishop, and okay, e6. Let's see the lines with e6. Do you remember the continuation? Here, white has played the castle king side. So we have seen that. So this is normal. So this continues with knight to e7. Do you remember the continuation? Here, he has played b3, and we haven't seen that. And this is a proof that you can play the Rossolimo as you want. The important is to evaluate correctly the positions, the different positions that appear on the chessboard. So here, this is kind of a setup for the Nils Larsen. So very interesting stuff. So this continues with a6, bishop takes, knight takes, bishop b2, and after b5, c4 to consolidate the center. So this continues with takes, and after rook to b8, of course, bishop c3, because I don't want to lose the bishop. This continues with d6, and after knight a3, be very careful for the black player, because this idea is brilliant. This is genial, because Akopian wants to activate his knight. So he is playing the knight a3. We have seen that on the study. And after e5, this is a problem. So let's go. Knight c2, knight e3, and now, okay, let's continue with d3, rook, because I'm already better, because the center is from the white player. So here, knight to d2, and now I can enter on the square on d5. So this game is easier for white. Look at the black pieces. They are all on the 8th line. So this continued with f5, and this game is finishing right now. After pawn takes, of course, f4 is too strong, because I want to break the pawn structure. So after rook to f7, this continued with queen to e1. The idea is to bring the queen to the king side. So this continues with rook g7, and after knight f3, queen g6, threatening to give checkmate on g2. This will continue with g3, and now the game is finishing, because rook f7, pawn takes, pawn advances to f4, and here Akopian will see a very interesting idea. So pawn takes, and Kasparov has made a blunder. So the position is already better for whites, but the problem is that Kasparov has taken the pawn. And the problem is that right now we have queen e8, so Kasparov has resigned. Why? Simple, because after rook f8, here we can continue, for example, with queen takes rook, king takes, and we have knight e5 taking the queen back. Why is that a problem? Well, this is a problem because we are winning by 3 points, so the game is over. So again, a very easy game for white. Of course, we are talking about strong grandmasters, Akopian and Kasparov. So, of course, they see tactical moves that I cannot see, or probably you cannot see too. But if you play correctly the ideas behind the Rossolimo, I'm certain you will do some damages. So the third and last game is very, very beautiful game, and has been played on 2016 between Fabiano Caruana and Timur Radjabov. So both of these players I enjoy a lot. Khajabov plays a lot of the openings that I like to play too, and Caruana is a player that he plays like a machine. So he is brilliant, and for me, he hasn't been world champion because he is from the same age as Magnus Carlsen, because Caruana is very strong too. So Caruana is playing with white, and this game is completely crazy. So let's go for the Rossolimo. G6 takes the other idea. And after d3, bishop g7, h3, knight to f6, knight again, and let's go for this position. As you're seeing, the white player isn't doing complicated stuff. So a bishop on f4, a queen on the d2, let's create pressure on h6. Everything is normal. Of course, we are talking about two players of the two top players. So he will castle queenside, and right now this game will be very complicated for both sides, because black is attacking on the queen side and white will attack on the king side. So f4 and rook, and this will be a crazy game. So a3 and b4. b4 is a beautiful move, because the idea is that this pawn cannot take, or else I will take the queen. And of course, you never advance the pawns near your king. But Caruana is advancing because he is very strong. For me, this is a mistake. For him, this is brilliant. So continuing, knight takes, and right now pawn advances because of the pressure on the knight on c. This continued with f5, and after knight to e2, this game is completely crazy because Caruana will give up a lot of pawns just to attack. So right now, knight to g3, threatening to take on h5, and after king h8, knight takes, and white is attacking. This square for the knight is great because the knight will be here forever, and we can create pressure on the h7 square. So this continued with bishop and another sacrifice of pawn, and of course he takes back, and after rook, white is threatening to give checkmate on g8, and black is forced to do that, but Caruana will do an incredible game, because right now he have another idea, rook h1. The idea is that if rook takes, queen takes, and this is over, because queen h7 will lose the game because of rook takes on h7. So this continued with bishop g6, and of course rook takes, queen to f7, and this game is finishing because right now it just needs to lose a tempo. And after pawn takes, let's go, queen on the center to create pressure and to threaten to advance the pawn. For example, he will play bishop f5, and now beautiful stuff, e6. What is the idea? Simple. The idea has been played. After rook takes, pawn takes queen. Incredible. And after rook takes queen, Caruana has this move, and it's over. So this pawn is unstoppable, and this square is being blocked by the knight. So incredible stuff by Caruana. So too strong, this guy. So today we've been talking about the Rossolimo. So this is quite a long video, but I hope you enjoyed this opening theory session. So if you have any question, or if I made any mistake, please tell me on the comments below. And as you know, tomorrow we'll be back here for more theory. So have a good night, and till tomorrow. Bye bye.